I'm Tim Malloy. They are the airborne angels of combat, the medical teams and flight crews who fly into the hot zones and take our wounded warriors out. Come with me on Air Force aeromedical flights as WXEL profiles the courageous people on medical missions who bring our wounded soldiers home.
Saving America's Heroes is brought to you in part by
Talk is cheap. Doing is not.
I want to pay a fair price for it.
I want to flip the switch and the lights go on.
At FPL, we never stop looking for ways to become more efficient. From our advanced technology that prevents problems to over 1,000 efficiency experts who find ways to deliver your energy more cost effectively, so you get the most reliable energy and the lowest bill in the state.
Because at FPL, reliable energy is affordable energy.
Reliable and affordable, that's my kind of energy.
Discover how FPL is bringing you value at FPL.com.
I'm Tim Malloy. Since the 9/11 attacks, I've been embedded 8 times with the U.S. military in Iraq and Afghanistan. On 4 of those assignments, I've flown on Air Force aeromedical evacuation missions, living with and profiling the doctors and nurses, health specialists, and flight crews who take our injured out of the battle theater. On every C-17 flight, on every Black Hawk mission, I've witnessed stories of stunning courage and sacrifice as devastating injuries that would have meant certain death in previous wars are met head-on. Deployment after deployment, they keep serving heroically. Here are some of their stories and the airborne angels who bring them home. In the 4 a.m. chill in a Quonset hut at an airfield in north-central Afghanistan, a pre-flight gathering of air crews and medical teams. While talk of war and sacrifice may have drifted from the dinner table conversation, thousands of Americans are still engaged in the clamor and war of the 10th year of hostilities in Afghanistan. This is Bagram, the sprawling U.S. airbase in the rugged foothills of the north-central region of the country, and the clock ticks through another holiday missed by service members who are trained to fight, but committed to saving lives.
I know I'm not home with my family, but I'm together with people that have earned my undying respect, and they've become my deployed family. And it's not a perfect substitute. It isn't like being home with my family, but these people are absolutely remarkable.
You heard about CCAT, right? They're running really late. We're not going to make her take off. Their patients are pretty bad. They just loaded them in the ambulance and they're on their way.
Every second counts. I mean, when the soldier's out there, every second absolutely counts to get them back to a surgical level of care.
He should have an IVAC, a pump. He's got an IV right here.
We pull 24-hour shifts. I could tell you all my guys, they're fatigued, but it's the mission. It's knowing that the guy on the ground out there or gal on the ground is waiting for us, keeps us going.
As soon as you get him put back, let's get these CCAT guys loaded.
And it's tough because we can't save them all, and we haven't saved them all. And my folks have seen some horrendous stuff since they've been here, and it will be with them for the rest of their lives.
Since September the 11th, 2001, the U.S. Air Force aeromedical evacuation system has moved nearly 81,000 patients, including 14,000 battle-injured soldiers, sailors, airmen, and Marines. They've been taken off battlefields in Iraq and Afghanistan and flown into the care of doctors and nurses who have redefined combat trauma medicine.
On the back of the ear, I got a hole the size of a golf ball in my arm and shrapnel in my leg. Other than that, I'm good.
Like entering into the gates of hell. So you see nothing but blood and glass and flames shooting over you. There's a little piece on the turret that basically saved my life. And at that time, you just realize that I don't know if I'm going to survive this.
They've been ferried by aircraft to the finest and busiest military critical care facilities in the world on aeromedical evacuation missions.
The birds, the medevac plays a vital role because
oh yeah, they definitely do. I would be dead if we didn't have the medevac birds. I mean, that's saving people like myself.
For 10 years, the gates of hell have been the deadly IED-laden battlefields of Iraq and Afghanistan. The way out starts with helicopters from the battlefield run by Air Force pararescue jumpers or PJs and Army dust-off crews. Life-saving, fast-breaking series of events begins with an urgent 9090 call into this corner of the Bagram airfield where the rescue helicopters are based. Within 10 minutes, the crews are in the air, 2 choppers flying very quickly, usually over the mountains, to rescue an injured soldier.
Okay, we currently sit here at Bagram, and this is kind of a map of RC East, and like I said, my unit covers all of this terrain here. So we're going to start out at Bagram here, and we're going to head down this valley to a place called Ghazni, which is a forward surgical team. And again, from there, they support all this general area here, damage control, surgery, and from there, we'll move them back up here to Bagram where they'll go into the level 3 facility. The soldiers who go out there on patrol, they go out there with the confidence knowing that we're going to come get them. No matter what the weather is, no matter what the enemy situation is, they know that when they leave the wire, they go out there to fight the enemy, that if they get hurt, that the helicopter with the Red Crosses is coming to get them, and it's coming as quickly as possible.
The injured are quickly stabilized and then eventually evacuated and flying intensive care units in the cargo holds of C-17 and KC-135 aircraft on flights to the Landstuhl Regional Medical Center in Germany.
We're moving 40 to 60 plus patients 2 to 3 times a week, every week. What I don't think that people understand is that influx that are coming in. I mean, it's amazing. And this is happening every day. People are getting shot every day over there. My name is Jody Pritchard, and I'm a captain in the West Virginia Air National Guard. I am also a flight nurse with PHI Air Care Medevac here in Winchester, Virginia.
All right, so once we get this offloaded, we'll bring off your other 3.
I wanted to follow my father's footsteps, and he encouraged me to join the Air Force and encouraged me to join the Guard. When we get deployed, when we're called up, we have to make sure that our crew members are able and willing to walk out the door at a minute's notice. And how we do that is make sure that everyone has a proper training so we're not caught off guard.
They're still working on those over there. Pretty sick patients, man. Yeah. So the next guy, is he ready to go? He's already off? Okay.
As a nurse, as a flight nurse in aerovac, you're in charge of everything in the back of that aircraft. That's the beauty of not just airvac, but emergency medicine, is that you have to be ready for anything. For PHI, I am a flight nurse also. We will drop in on the scene of a bad car accident. We pick up patients right off the side of a road. That golden hour is what we're known for, and we'll go pick that patient up and take him to the proper facilities. Doing this job, I watch death every day. I watch freak accidents every day. So I know how fragile life is. I know exactly what could happen at a minute's notice. To be able to possess that knowledge, to understand what needs to be done at that time to save that person's life, is a drive like no other. It's horrible when you look at someone like younger than me coming on the plane missing limbs and knowing they signed up and they did it voluntarily to go fight for our country. And that's the biggest thing you see with these kids. And these kids will be laying there they're dismembered, and they'll look up at you, and you know what they'll say? They'll be like, when can I go back? They'll ask me, hey, where's my troops at? I need to get back in the fight. But, they're kids. And they don't care what's happened to them. They're worried about their buddies over there, and they can't wait to go back.
The crews that bring back the critically injured soldiers, some on life support, many of them amputees, are citizen soldiers. 60% of all Air Force evacuation missions are run by National Guard and reserves.
It's gonna go right there.
There are emergency room doctors and nurses, airline pilots, volunteers who leave their lives behind to serve their country by saving lives.
What is amazing to see is the selflessness of so many of these folks. Our soldiers, sailors, airmen, Marines that we bring on board the airplane, even some of the most critically wounded, you can see how proud they are for what they've done, what they've given to their country. At the same time, you can see, the pain and suffering they're currently going through. What I get the most out of it is especially the aeromed crews. You have the critical care teams, you have the doctors, the nurses, the respiratory therapists, the med techs, and to see how they'll work tirelessly, for 10, 12, 14 hours to take care of our most critically wounded. It's heartwarming. Again, especially with all the devastation here, you see some people doing some wonderful things.
It means a tremendous amount because we actually get to take part in what, in my opinion, is one of the most important missions going on right now, and that's getting our wounded soldiers out of the battle zone and to a safe place where they can recover.
These crews fly from the U.S. and Ramstein Air Force Base in Germany, tracking downrange into potentially hostile airspace. Once in the battle theater, they dive steeply on classified combat landing flight paths to avoid ground-to-air missile strikes. Captain Travis Grantham is at the controls of this flight from Germany to Afghanistan on a KC-135 Stratotanker that's manned by the Arizona National Guard.
100. 50.
Grantham crabs the plane in against a 40-knot crosswind that's howling off the Hindu Kush foothills and across the 12,500-foot Bagram runway.
Hey, you got 4 ground idlings. Very nice. Absolutely beautiful, Travis. Thanks, guys.
The descent is steep, the landing tricky, but deftly handled, and we're there. Waiting on the ground is a seasoned colonel who oversees the aeromedical evacuation teams that get the injured onto the flights and out of the war zone.
Could we have a look at what the potential patients are for tonight? Do we have anything on the manifest? If you look back in World War II, it might take anywhere from 2 weeks to 30 days to get a patient back home. Now we can do it within 72 hours. You know, there's a step by step that gets them back to the States and gets them to where they can be rehabilitated. It's phenomenal.
The key to survival for any badly injured person is rapid treatment. In the early 1900s, wartime transport employed any means available, and on the battlefield that meant a stretcher. During World War I, the most seriously injured were often left behind, since their chances of survival were slim to none. Once they reached an aid post, wounded soldiers might travel by ambulance or train to an evacuation hospital, or by ship back to the U.S. Slow travel and the fact that antibiotics had not yet been discovered meant a wounded soldier had a less than 30% chance of survival. The idea of removing injured soldiers by aircraft began with the 1918 Curtiss JN-4H Jenny, which was a training aircraft. It was modified to carry 1 patient and was soon followed by other air ambulances that could carry 2 to 4 patients on litters, a medical officer, and the plane's pilot. Patient comfort was a work in progress. Despite these early experiments, before and during much of the Second World War, almost all wounded soldiers were transported by slow and costly hospital ship or train.
Ambulances transfer the wounded to hospital trains. Nurses of the Army Medical Corps traveling right with the men to provide every possible comfort during the first stage of the long journey home. At base hospitals, they rest and are prepared for the voyage back to America.
With the global scale of World War II, the military began evacuating wounded soldiers in cargo planes that were returning from the battlefield empty. By the end of World War II, in 1945, more than 1 million wounded soldiers had been evacuated by plane. The Korean War came next.
I was in Korea itself for 14 months, flying the wounded from Korea to Japan. Put them on board the cargo planes and flew to various hospitals in Japan. That got them their wounds tended to a lot quicker than they would have 50 years ago in an old ambulance. I wanted to help. My mother says, fine, go. She was behind me. I said, I'd like to go into the nurse corps. And went through that course in Alabama, and then I was sent overseas to fly the wounded from Korea to Japan, and for the wounded, I go back and do it all over again. As crippled up as I am, for any country, I would go and get on a plane and bring the wounded out if I could. I still have that same feeling.
Airplane evacuation was one thing, but Korea and Vietnam had rough terrain and few paved roads. So rotary wing aircraft or helicopters were used to get to remote locations and bring patients back quickly and safely. The result, more soldiers were saved. While 71% survived World War II and 74% Korea, more than 82% of badly injured soldiers in Vietnam survived. Still, it took weeks for them to travel from battlefield to the U.S.
The care that our troops are getting is saving their lives, even much more so than when we were in Vietnam. I was stationed there in 67 and 68. The medics out in the field, you stabilized them. You got them back to an evac hospital. And at the evac hospital, then you had surgeons, but they weren't getting sent right away. I'd say a good week or so, before they were stabilized enough that they could go ahead and get sent to Japan. So it wasn't as quick as it is now.
By contrast, a soldier wounded today in Iraq or Afghanistan could arrive at a level 4 trauma center in Landstuhl, Germany in as few as 12 hours and be back in the U.S. for complete care within 3 days of their injury. Their rescue starts with helicopter units that bring the wounded to trauma care within an hour, that golden hour after the injury that's critical to saving life. One helicopter unit is the Air Force Pararescue Jumpers, fully armed helicopter units that fly into battle zones to rescue injured soldiers and return them to the nearest forward operating base for immediate rehab. It's an extraordinary effort that often begins in rugged terrain in the midst of a firefight.
If it's like at the top of the list, which is category alpha, or basically an urgent patient, we've got 15 minutes to get these rotors spinning and off the ground and get that guy wherever he is within our area of responsibility here. So, I mean, it's real quick. The fact that that person's hurt, your heart drops and you want to get that person as fast as you can back to somewhere where he or she can be safe.
Once airborne, even though they're bristling with .50 caliber weaponry, the pararescue jumper crews are moving targets.
This is aircraft 402, and it has a special place in my heart. We were flying it on a certain mission in Afghanistan in the mountains when we took enemy fire in a hover. And the aircraft itself carries some scars from that mission. We were able to patch it and keep it in service. We were able to land it that day. But one of the scars here on the tail rotor, right under the drive shaft, we took a round that passed inches below a critical component on the aircraft. And in the cabin area here, we had 2 of our PJs who were attached to the hoist and ready to start being lowered down in a high hover when we took fire, an effective machine gun burst that hit us 5 times on the right side, once on our rotor, and then right here you can see where it entered the engine and disabled our right engine, which is a critical emergency in the mountains with high heat, in a hover especially. And we were able to descend down the side of the mountain and save the aircraft, get forward airspeed, and be able to fly on one engine.
I've had 6 helicopters shot up since I've been here. And most recently, an operation that's happening currently right now, where most of the patients are in these, it's in the northeast portion of Afghanistan, and the terrain is very channelizing to where we have to do a hoist mission. In other words, we have an internal hoist that booms out and lowers the medic down and picks the patient up via hoist and brings them back to the helicopter because we can't land. And those are the most dangerous situations we find ourselves in, not necessarily with the enemy, because we're sitting target at that point, but also because of the weather.
The other helicopter evacuation unit is the 57th Medical Detachment, nicknamed Dust-Off in the Vietnam conflict. And from April 1962 through the end of the Vietnam War, Army Dust-Off helicopters transported nearly 1 million military and civilian casualties. They are the flying ambulances of today.
It's similar to Firehouse. The crews, we have 3 crews that are on 24-hour duty day here, and they're ready to respond at a moment's notice. So the standard is 15 minutes from the time somebody requests us, we're wheels up out of here, en route to pick that soldier up.
It's midday on the tarmac at Bagram Airfield in Afghanistan, and the Dust-Off air ambulance crews prep their Black Hawk helicopters for a bandage run from a forward operating base to Bagram. It's called a bandage run because the patients have already received some trauma care at a level 1 base where they're being picked up. Unlike the pararescue jumpers, Dust-Off units are not heavily armed because they fly as Red Cross units under the Geneva Convention. Still, their work is fraught with danger. Today we're headed to Ghazni, southwest of Kabul, to pick up 4 patients. 2 are U.S. soldiers who suffered concussions in an IED blast. We're also picking up an Afghan soldier who was shot in the leg.
We don't do this mission alone. We have had to fight our way into those patients using attack helicopters or even the ground force to try and secure at least an area at a period short enough to where we can get in, get the patient, and get out. That always doesn't work out, thus why 5 helicopters have taken rounds.
We sweep over Kabul, Afghanistan's largest city, taking the Afghan patient to the Kabul hospital. The crew scans the area around the landing pad, ready for any threat. Later that night, Taliban suicide bombers attacked the Intercontinental Hotel in Kabul, killing 10 people before NATO forces stopped them. Some of the injured are likely airlifted to the Heath N. Craig Joint Theater Hospital at Bagram, which is overseen by a straight-talking colonel who left his private practice as a surgeon to serve American soldiers right after 9/11.
All right, we'll start off at the front here. We've learned a tremendous amount on what to do and how to deal with combat injuries. If an individual, whether it's U.S. serviceman or Afghan that's fighting in the battle or coalition individual, if they get to Bagram, there's a 98% chance that that person will survive. It's pretty good odds.
Intensive care for soldiers who have traumatic injuries is provided by Critical Care Air Transport Teams, or CCAT. They include a doctor, a nurse, and a respiratory therapist. They will never leave the side of trauma victims, from the early point of injury right through the long flight to Germany.
It is a team effort. None of us are able to take care of these patients alone. Sometimes we're dealing with multiple patients who have ongoing issues. They are so close to the point of injury, sometimes within hours of their injuries, and we're taking them on an 8-hour plane ride to get them to Germany, and they're still receiving care, actively getting care. We're giving units of blood, we're giving them medications to keep their blood pressure up, and we're actively trying to control their pain, which a lot of them have a significant amount of pain. It's unbelievable how quickly we're able to get these people from their initial point of battle injury all the way back to the United States.
It's the most gratifying job in the world. It truly is. There is nothing more gratifying to take care of these kids.
I am serving my country and taking care of these young men and women. They're taking bullets for me. They're getting blown up for me, for my freedoms. They're out on the front line. The least I can do is train the folks underneath me, and we're going to take care of those men and women and make sure they're okay.
Virtually every soldier, sailor, Marine, or airman returning home faces some kind of physical or emotional challenge. For those who have been deployed 3, 4, 5 times, those challenges are compounded. Separation from family, isolation from the comforts of a normal life. The nightmare of war takes a piece out of everyone. Everybody's story is different. Everybody must find their own way. The wounded or injured will ultimately end up here, 4,000 miles northwest of Afghanistan, in a modern military hospital on the grounds of what was once a Nazi garrison, not far from the French border. After treatment in Germany, those who can return to the fight. The others have a C-17 flight to Andrews Air Force Base near Washington, D.C., to a major military hospital near there, and then eventually to a VA hospital in their hometown.
I spent 10 years in the Marine Corps. My primary job was recon. I was injured on 3 separate incidences in Iraq.
Did you ditch the chair?
I ditched it.
For good or just seeing how it goes?
Occasionally.
Occasionally.
Nice to meet you guys. I was involved in 2 car bomb attacks. When I was hit with the car bombs, I had 2 massive traumatic brain injuries. And when I came back from Iraq, I was actually on the beach playing volleyball with friends, and then I had a stroke, which caused my left side to be paralyzed. They believe that was from the TBIs I sustained in Iraq. How you doing? Not bad. I rode this is the Charles River here in Boston, and I'm actually in the process of training for the Paralympics next year in London. So I row 5 days a week here. It's a great facility, lots of river to row in. Right now it's a bit cold, so in the wintertime they move the rowing inside. We use the machines called the erg, because I row one-handed, because I just have the use of my right arm. My left arm is still under rehab. I also could not walk after my stroke, but I can walk now. So the rehab is 1 day at a time.
What do you want your...
Can I get that set to 15,000?
Good.
All right.
All right, Carl.
Thank you. It's always nice when you get on the water, when you start rowing, it's really peaceful. And the people in the boat with you, just carry on nice conversations with them. It's nice and relaxing, almost puts you to sleep. Of course, you can't do that because then you fall in the water. But the first time I was hit was a car bomb, and a piece of shrapnel killed my A driver. Then the shrapnel hit me in the face, and it broke my nose. After the incident, there was a lot of shooting. The insurgents like to attack. Then the Marines arrived, and then helicopters flew overhead for medevac to pick me up, and then transfer me to Baghdad. I was injured again on a second car bomb in Baghdad, which knocked me out. And there was a lot of gunfire, a lot of blasts when I woke up, and then I heard the helicopter coming down. I respect those guys and anyone in the medical field because they do a lot of work and they save our lives. I'm behind them 100%. I know it's a hard job and they have a lot to do, and they see death and they see a lot of blood every day.
Sergeant First Class Christopher Blauvelt and Specialist Jeff LaFerriere were with their company in Afghanistan on patrol on Easter Sunday, 2010.
We were on a vehicle patrol. We had just left a village and we got hit by an IED. It was a big one, so it disabled the vehicle.
And shortly after, I just remember waking up in the vehicle, and Sergeant First Class Blauvelt, he was in bad condition. When I hit the ground, I realized my back was hurting pretty good. I know it took a little while for the medevacs to get there. Afghanistan's full of mountains, so communications is sometimes tough.
The first medical facility was in Jalalabad, and that's where some of us started to receive our first surgeries. And some were medevac shortly after that to Bagram.
They saw that I had some fractures in my back, and I was the first out of there on a medevac. Once I got into Bagram, my memory's kind of in and out, but they put me under, and the next thing I remember, I was waking up in Germany. Sergeant Blauvelt, he was still in intensive care for a while, and
Way too long.
Yeah, I didn't get to see him for about, I think, maybe a week or something.
Holding hands.
Yeah, we were
like
holding
little
hands.
babies.
I was in a wheelchair and stuff. My mom rolled it down there, I was concerned, well, at Jalalabad, we heard them rush him into the operating room, so.
I'm not someone people worried about anyways, I don't think.
We worried about you.
I wasn't like that, come on. I had, stitches in the forehead, broken nose, stitches in the chin, broke my C7, so they removed the disc above and below that and fused it. I had a blood clot, so they put in one of those little cages near your heart. They did the same split in my abdomen that they did for him, because when I had the below knee amputation, they thought that's what was causing my blood pressure to drop so severely. And when they cut it, it wasn't. It was the pelvic fracture that I had that they didn't know about yet. So I broke every bone in my lumbar spine. I broke my T4. So they fused me from my T10 all the way down to my pelvis. Bowel obstruction, broken ankle and broken foot, collapsed lung. I would be dead if we didn't have the medevac birds. I mean, there's no way I would have survived that amount of time driving. It is amazing to think about, though, in combat zone that you could get to a surgeon within 25 minutes or whatever the flight is. It doesn't get any better than that. They're out there to save lives, and they're doing it at all levels. And one of the best feelings you can hear is a helicopter coming in if you need it.
Staff Sergeant Joseph Bimfor heard the blast that took his legs and remembers the sound of the incoming Black Hawk.
I remember everything. I was looking down at the wire, following the wire on the ground, and I heard a loud pop. It wasn't really an explosion, it wasn't a boom, it was more like a loud pop. And I got hit with shrapnel and debris. I was stunned, I didn't really know what would happen, and I looked down and blood was pouring out of my vest.
On July 5, 2005, as the dust from the explosion settled on a heavily mined road in Bakuba, Iraq, the medics knew there was little time before life would slip away from Joe Bimfor. His lower body had been shattered by an improvised explosive device that was planted in the road by insurgents. A member of his 1st Infantry Cavalry Scout Patrol, who was walking slightly ahead of him, was dead on the ground.
I did talk to my medic who treated me that day, and he said when he put me on the helicopter, he thought I was dead.
Once again, a Black Hawk scrambled to the scene of an IED attack, and for Joe Bimfor, it did not look good.
My left leg below the knee was blown off actually at the site. It's what they call a traumatic amputation. And my right leg, because I was so close to the blast, it essentially splintered all the bones in my right leg and ripped all the blood vessels and arteries in my right leg. So my right leg was so badly damaged they couldn't salvage it. I was bleeding from my abdomen, I was bleeding from my femoral artery, I was losing a lot of blood. So when they called the medevac from Balad is about a 45-minute drive from where we were. So by helicopter it wasn't that far at all. So they got out to us in 12 minutes. And then once they saw how badly I was injured and had to get back to the hospital, they actually got me back to the hospital in about 6 minutes. I guess they routinely do they clear their landing zone before they land patients at the hospital, but they didn't do that with me. They just came in hot, landed, and took me in.
Stabilized in Iraq, kept alive on the flight to Germany, Joe was sustained by the gentle care of aeromedical units, then teams of doctors and nurses and physical therapists. Nearly 70% of the war injured are victims of IED blasts, and soft-spoken Joe Bimfor, who dreamed of being an LAPD SWAT member after he finished his tour, is one of them. When he came home, his body was broken, his will was not. But there were so many unknowns.
What's it going to look like when I wear prosthetics? How am I going to walk on these things? What are people going to treat me like? You know, am I going to be able to date? Am I going to be able to get married? Is somebody going to find me attractive, missing no limbs?
19 marathons later, proudly wearing the colors of the Achilles Track Club that sponsors disabled racers worldwide, Joseph Bimfor counsels other service people who have not been able to embrace recovery and look forward as he has. Soft-spoken about his service, he asks little back for his sacrifice.
All I want to hear is somebody say, "How you doing? Were you a veteran?" "Yes, thank you for your service." That's all I want. You know, I got into an argument with a guy the other day because I can't remember where I was at, but he walked up to me and said, "How'd you lose your legs?" Not, "Hi, how are you doing? Were you a veteran? Did you serve in Iraq and Afghanistan? How'd you lose your legs?" So you want me to tell you the worst day of my life to a complete stranger, and you don't even want to have the courtesy to introduce yourself. So, you know, be kind, be nice, and just thank them for their service.
Back in Tampa, Joe Bimfor, who proudly reveals he's part Cherokee, whose friends call him Mighty Joe, gets ready for another race. There isn't an ounce of self-pity in his voice, not a flicker of bitterness. Spend one afternoon with Mighty Joe, and there's only one conclusion you can draw. This is the kind of guy they write books about.
When I was on that helicopter, that medevac, when I first got injured, I said a prayer to God, asking to spare my life, asking to let me live. But if he wanted me to come home, I would go home. I was ready. You know, I confessed my sins. My soul was saved. If God wanted me to come home, I would have went home. So when I woke up and I was alive, that's all that mattered. Yeah, I lost my legs, but I was alive. Life can go on even if you're faced with, you know, horrible circumstances. You know, you don't have to give up. You can fight. You can keep going on. You know, I am disabled now. I have a disabled life, but that doesn't mean that my life stopped. It's just, it has to be adapted. It has to be modified, but it still goes on.
They're so resilient. You would be amazed at the folks that say, "Ma'am, when am I going to get better? I need to get back to my men and women. I need to get back to my troops." The camaraderie here, the dedication is phenomenal.
All right, here we go. So this is the best part. I get to borrow my neighbor's puppy dogs and we get to go for a walk.
First of all, you have to be the nurse. And the reason why is because they need you right there and then. You do not have time to cry. You do not have time to feel. You basically put those feelings in a box and you put them over here on the counter.
All right, let's go back now. We can't stay out too long.
I think war affects people in different ways. And depending on what your coping mechanisms are or how you've been brought up, you know, everyone deals with those in different ways. As far as the caregivers that we are and the feeling hearts that we have already, you know, sometimes it is hard for us to see so many folks injured, but we support each other, and I think that's what helps us when we see the things that we see. And the fact that we're able to somehow have an impact and make people better, that gives us strength, and that gives us the reason to want to do this again.
There's a lot of assumption, out there that, oh, well, the medevac guys, I see that every day, they're used to it, and that's really not the case. I mean, we never want to see that, but yeah, unfortunately, that's our business, and we end up having to see a lot of destruction, a lot of hurt soldiers, and it gets to us. We'd all be lying if we said we came back and everything was the same. My wife will tell you I'm not the same person I was back in 2002. It eventually has a toll on the human psyche. You learn coping techniques, but a little piece of you never leaves there. A little piece of you, you're always thinking about it. Every day I wake up and I hear about things that have happened over there, and you kind of regret that you're not there to help out. Come on. My wife, she is really the strength that keeps me going, without a doubt. And every soldier, I mean, their family is their core. So that's that second motivator besides the mission that keeps us going and doing what we do, is because we're doing this not only for our country, but for our families as well, and for our children, in hopes someday that they never have to see what we have had to see.
So why do you do this?
This is my part. This is my part. I was raised to be very patriotic, so I joined the military, and this is what I do to contribute.
As the war grinds through its 10th year, here's what the aeromedical crews would like you to know. The fight rages on.
Many of the people I'm here with, this is their third, fourth, fifth trip out. It's a mission that's not done.
The wounded, some on life support, are being moved from point of injury to forward operating base, to the Bagram Hospital, to flying trauma wards, to Landstuhl, Germany, then home, eventually to VA hospitals nearest their hometowns. It hasn't stopped for 10 years. On this chilly winter night, the wounded are gently transitioned from ICU to the bustling hold of the waiting C-17, which will soon disappear into the night. Not a crew member here will be home for Christmas or Hanukkah or New Year's. Most have families. No one complains.
We want the guys to go home and see their families, their kids, their brothers, their sisters, and their parents themselves. And it'd be nice for them to have at least that holiday with their family if they could.
There's no greater joy on Christmas than saying, I'm putting someone on a plane and getting them home to their family for Christmas. There's just nothing like that.
American troops have left Iraq. The drawdown will continue in Afghanistan. But as any combat veteran or multiply deployed service member will tell you, it never really leaves you. The effects of war linger. They ripple through families. They touch generations to come. So it is wise and right to take the advice of wheelchair racer Mighty Joe Bimfor, who lost his legs in Iraq. When you see us, he suggests quietly, all you need to say is, thank you for your service. I'm Tim Malloy, and thank you for watching.
My name is Kurt Lorster. I'm Corporal, United States Army, retired. I served in 1952 to 1954. My serial number is US 511-46823.
Michael Corbett. I served in the United States Marine Corps 1964 to 1970. I was in Vietnam in 1965 and 66 as a machine gunner.
My name is Bernard Soberman, the opposite of drunk. I served in Europe in the infantry, private first class.
My name is Irv Rubin. I joined the Navy when I was 19 years old.
Frank Pickett. I served in Vietnam from 1968 1969. My service number is RA 14765-282. I spent 20 years in the military from 1961 to 1981.
I'm Stanley Gablick. I live here in Delray Beach. I was in the U.S. Navy. I enlisted in March of 1952 and I was discharged in June of 1956.
Tom Kaiser, U.S. Navy vet, World War II. Joined the Navy on my 17th birthday, kid from New York. Got to the Pacific in time for Harry to drop the bomb. So I got to bring a lot of guys home from China and Japan who had been out there and Because of guys that died, I was able to come home and live with my family in peace.
That never leave me. I am personally enrolled in a clinic to treat post-traumatic stress syndrome. They're going to have physical wounds, and those that really don't have physical wounds are going to have mental wounds.
I lived under Nazi occupation for 7 years. I'm born in Austria, Vienna, Austria, and I was chased away from there with my parents. I had to move to Belgium, from Belgium to France. In France, my parents were taken away when I was 13 to be murdered in Auschwitz.
I had expected to die in Vietnam, and every day that I got a new day just was another day to look forward to getting killed with my buddies. Today, as surprised as I am to be this old and still going, I'm very happy to be here. And I think that a lot of my life is lived for those guys that didn't make it.
You were part of the Normandy invasion, though.
Part of the Normandy invasion, yeah. We went into Utah Beach.
You must be proud of that.
I was very proud of it. I can see the various incidents. I can see myself flying through the air. When a mortar shell landed near me, I went up in the air. I didn't get hurt, but the fellow with me got a piece of metal in his brain, died immediately.
Until you are forgotten, you're never dead. You are still alive as long as people remember you. Don't forget them. Go to the cemetery if they're buried here, okay? Go to a memorial park. Go to some veteran service and pay your respects. We can't forget them, because without them, we're speaking a foreign language, or we're dead and we're not here today.
Saving America's Heroes was brought to you in part by...
Talk is cheap. Doing is not.
I want to pay a fair price for it.
I want to flip the switch and the lights go on.
At FPL, we never stop looking for ways to become more efficient. From our advanced technology that prevents problems to over 1,000 efficiency experts who find ways to deliver your energy more cost effectively, so you get the most reliable energy and the lowest bill in the state.
Because at FPL, reliable energy is affordable energy.
Reliable and affordable, that's my kind of energy.
Discover how FPL is bringing you value at FPL.com.